When did we become strangers? I asked. She just smiled. I used to think love was loud. I used to think if it was real, you'd feel it in the way a door closed, in the way a voice cracked, in the way two people fought, like the world was ending, and then held each other like it hadn't. That's what love looked like in my house, growing up. And that's what I expected when I married Marlowe. But nobody tells you that love can also die quietly, in a kitchen, over a cup of coffee that's gone cold, while two people sit 3 feet apart and somehow feel like they're standing on opposite continents. My name is Weston Hale. I was 34 years old the night I finally asked my wife a question I'd been swallowing for months, maybe longer. We'd been married for 7 years. Together for 9. We had a house in a quiet Ohio suburb, a mortgage, a golden retriever named Biscuit, who greeted me at the door with more enthusiasm than my own wife had shown in longer than I wanted to admit. We had a life that looked, from the outside, like something worth wanting. Friends called us the stable ones, the couple who'd made it, the ones who hadn't fallen apart when everyone else seemed to be splitting at the seams. But stable isn't the same as alive. It started small, the way these things always do. She stopped waiting up for me when I worked late. I stopped asking about her day, because the answers had become short, clipped, like she was handing me a receipt instead of a conversation. We slept in the same bed, but woke up like roommates, careful not to touch, careful not to need anything from each other that might require an actual response. I told myself it was a phase. Every marriage has seasons, I said. This is just winter. It'll pass. Winter lasted 3 years. The night everything cracked open was a Tuesday, unremarkable in every way, except for what happened inside it. I'd come home from the office a little earlier than usual. No real reason, just tired in a way that had nothing to do with my job. Marlowe was in the kitchen, her laptop open, a glass of wine beside her that she hadn't touched. She looked up when I walked in, gave me the same small, polite smile she gave the mailman, and went back to her screen. I stood there for a second, watching her. This woman I had once known so completely could tell what she was thinking before she said a word. And I realized, with a kind of quiet horror, that I had no idea what she was thinking anymore. I didn't know if she was happy. I didn't know if she was sad. I didn't know if she still loved me, or if she was simply too tired to leave. Marlowe, I said, and something in my voice must have carried more weight than usual, because she actually looked up and closed the laptop. Yeah, I sat down across from her at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd once stayed up until 3 in the morning, talking about the kids we wanted to have, the house we wanted to build, the trip to Portugal we kept promising ourselves and never taking. I looked at her face. Still beautiful, still familiar, and still somehow like looking at a stranger wearing my wife's features. When did we become strangers? I asked. I don't know what I expected. Tears, maybe, anger, an argument that would at least prove there was still something left to fight for. What I got instead was worse than any of it. She smiled. Not a cruel smile, not mocking, just this small, sad, knowing smile, like I'd finally asked the question she'd been waiting years for me to ask. And now that I had, she almost pitied me for taking so long. I don't know, Weston, she said softly. Do you really want to know? Or do you just want me to say something that makes you feel better? I want the truth. She was quiet for a long moment, turning the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. I think we became strangers the day we stopped being curious about each other, she said. You used to ask me things, real things, what I was afraid of, what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years. Now, you ask me if I picked up the dry cleaning. The words landed like a slap, mostly because they were true. I didn't stop caring, I said, and even as I said it, I heard how thin it sounded. I know you didn't stop caring, she said. I don't think either of us stopped caring. I think we just stopped showing up. There's a difference. You can care about someone from a distance forever. Caring doesn't require anything of you. Showing up does. I wanted to argue with her, but I couldn't find the footing. Because she was right, and some part of me had known it for a long time. I had been showing up for my job, for my parents, for biscuits, vet appointments, and the neighbor's kid's birthday party, for every obligation except the one that mattered most. The one sitting right in front of me with a smile that broke my heart, more than any scream ever could have. "So what do we do?" I asked. "I don't know if there's a we to do anything with," she said. And for the first time that night, her voice trembled. "I've been thinking about this for a long time, Weston. Longer than you probably realize. And I think I stayed quiet about it because saying it out loud would make it real, and I wasn't ready for it to be real." My chest went tight. "Are you saying you want out?" "I'm saying I don't know what I want anymore, except that I don't want to keep living like this. Sleeping next to someone and feeling alone. Sitting across from you at dinner and running out of things to say. I miss you, Weston. And you're sitting right here." I sat with that sentence for a long time. "I miss you, and you're sitting right here." It was the loneliest, most honest thing anyone had ever said to me, and it cracked something open in my chest that I'd kept sealed for years. We didn't sleep that night. Not really. We sat at that table until nearly 5 in the morning, saying things we'd been too afraid, or too proud, or too tired to say for years. She told me she'd felt invisible since her mother passed away 2 years earlier, how I'd shown up to the funeral and then quietly checked out of being present for the grief that followed, burying myself in work because it was easier than sitting with her pain. I told her about the promotion I turned down without telling her, because some part of me had been punishing myself for not being enough, and how, instead of talking to her about it, I'd just gone quiet, assuming she wouldn't understand, or worse, wouldn't care. Neither of us had been cruel to each other. That was the strange, aching truth of it. We hadn't cheated, hadn't screamed, hadn't done any of the things you see in movies that mark the end of a marriage. We had simply stopped reaching for each other, one small withdrawal at a time, until the distance between us had grown too wide to notice how it happened. In the weeks that followed, we didn't fix everything overnight. Because that's not how real life works. No matter how badly you want it to. We didn't suddenly become the couple we used to be, but we started doing something we hadn't done in years. We started showing up. Small things, at first. She'd tell me about her day, and I'd actually put my phone down and listen. Ask a follow-up question instead of just nodding along. I started coming home earlier, not because anyone told me to, but because I wanted to see her face when I walked through the door. Wanted to know if that smile she gave me was real, or just a habit. We started going to therapy together, which felt strange and clumsy at first, like trying to speak a language we'd both forgotten. Our therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Patel, told us something in our second session that I've never forgotten. She said, "The opposite of connection isn't conflict, it's indifference. Conflict means you still care enough to fight for something. Indifference means you've already left. You just haven't packed your bags yet." I thought about all those quiet dinners, all those nights we didn't fight because we didn't care enough to, and I understood, for the first time, how close we had actually come to losing each other without ever raising our voices. There were setbacks. There was a night, about 2 months into trying, when Marlowe broke down, crying in the bathroom because she said she didn't know if she trusted that this version of me, the one who was suddenly present and curious and soft, was going to last, or if I'd slip back into old patterns the moment life got busy again. I didn't have a perfect answer for her. I just sat outside that bathroom door for 20 minutes until she opened it. And I told her the only thing I knew was true, that I couldn't promise I'd never mess up again, but I could promise I'd keep choosing to show up, even on the days it was hard, even on the days I didn't feel like it. It took almost a year before Marlowe and I felt like we were building something new instead of just repairing something broken. We took that trip to Portugal we'd talked about for a decade, walking along the cobblestone streets of Lisbon, and one evening, sitting on a balcony overlooking the water, she reached over and took my hand without either of us saying anything. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie moment. It was just quiet and warm and real, in a way that so much of our life together had stopped being for a long time. I asked her that night, half joking, half not, "Do you still think we're strangers?" She looked at me for a long moment, the ocean breeze moving through her hair, and this time when she smiled, it wasn't the sad, knowing smile from that kitchen table a year earlier. It was something lighter, something that reached her eyes. "No," she said. "I think we're finally becoming who we were supposed to be all along. It just took almost losing each other to figure out how. I won't pretend our marriage became perfect after that night in Lisbon, because marriages don't work that way, and any story that tells you otherwise is lying to you. We still have hard days. We still forget to ask each other the right questions sometimes. Still let a week slip by where we're more like co-workers running a household than two people in love. But the difference now is that we notice it. We catch it before it becomes a year, before it becomes a decade, before it becomes a stranger sitting across a kitchen table, asking a question neither of us wants to answer." Looking back now, I think the scariest thing about that night wasn't her smile. It was how close we had come to becoming permanent strangers, without either of us ever raising our voices to stop it. Nobody warns you that the quietest marriages are sometimes the ones in the most danger, because there's no yelling to signal something is wrong, no slammed door to make you sit up and pay attention. There's just silence and distance, and two people slowly forgetting how to reach for each other. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this, it's this: don't wait for the fight to know something is broken. Don't mistake the absence of conflict for the presence of love. Ask the hard question before it's too late to hear the answer. Marlowe and I got lucky. We asked in time. Not everyone does. These days, when I come home, Biscuit still beats her to the door, but she's not far behind him anymore. And when she smiles at me now, it isn't the smile of someone who's already halfway gone. It's the smile of someone who chose to stay, and who I chose right back, every single day since. She looked at me for a long moment. The ocean breeze